Hey, Jens, when it comes to covering royals, pop culture, and politics, the king and his family are kind of in that middle area between reality TV and politics. They have ceremonial duties, they have specific rules from global affairs, like diplomatic protocol, and these apply to them. And that means their credibility really matters.
It's maybe it was the beginning of reality TV somehow, because they always were in the public eye, and they the they live basically from being in the public eye. As a person in England, in Britain, you grow up with them, and you really connect to them. It's like people who connected to Kim Kardashian over the years, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose they've followed her. And it's like they know them. And now we've just jumped in. I'm with Jens Prewo. You're a journalist and producer, and you've covered not only celebrities, but global affairs. And that's why I'm talking to you today, because in the last 7 to 10 days, there's been such a huge amount of media coverage of the royal family. And there hasn't been a lot of information coming out, but there's sure been a lot of speculation. It seems like the public is trying to fill the gap to figure out what's going on. And last week, it was all about Kate Middleton's doctored pictures. And you know about paparazzi photos. And I want you to explain to me what the difference is between the pictures that the royal family would officially release and what we see as paparazzi pictures.
Well, first we had this doctored picture, which was allegedly taken by Prince William and then released by Kensington Palace, and the specialists found out that it was doctored, it was altered in many ways. And just a few days later, there was a paparazzo photo, and it was William and Kate in the car. You could not really see Kate's face, but you could see William's face. And then people said, "Oh, the first photo was faked or was altered. Maybe the second one too." And many people said, "Oh yeah, I'm convinced it had to be also a fake photo." And I was a little angry about that because we should be, we always say that we should be media educated, and we should look critically. We should also use the common sense. If I receive a photo that is by an official journalistic paparazzo agency published, of course, I'm always critical when I receive something, but I would put my thinking that it might be altered or totally fake. I would that put on the end of my list.
Okay, let me jump in there right there because paparazzi, ever since Princess Diana's death and before then, is considered a negative thing. But we're using this term to describe people that take pictures of celebrities and sell them. This is their bread and butter. So you're saying that paparazzi pictures aren't necessarily something that you should be suspicious of? Explain to me why.
Because they work with journalists. Sometimes the paparazzis are not journalists. I agree with that. But they sell their pictures to news outlets, so they have to abide by the journalistic code of conduct. If they would alter the picture, it would they would go out of business.
So they
And
lose all credibility. So
now going back to the Mother's Day photo,
Mhm.
uh, it was altered, and I didn't hear that anyone lost their job because it was altered either by Kate or by someone in Kensington Palace in the PR department. And for PR people, these strict the conduct code of conduct is different. It's not so strict. I know a case of a photographer working for AP in Frankfurt, and he was fired after 25 years because of one photo. It was a photo of the moon during the daytime above of the town hall of Frankfurt, the Römer, and he found that very pretty. And but he said, "Oh, it would have been nicer if the moon was there during nighttime." So he put a filter on it to change it to nighttime, and AP published it. Or then they found out because you can find out when the moon is shining and when not. So this poor journalist, because of this one, you could call it mistake. I would think it's very severe, but it was not a photo of within the political context or anything else. He was really fired after 25 years.
When everything came out about the Mother's Day, a photo that was released that was doctored, there was a discussion about whether a picture is reality or if it's art. And in this example that you just shared, we could argue that it would have been an artistic picture, but because AP, Associated Press, used it and they're known as a news agency, this is probably where they show that they are serious about their business of only sharing fact-based information.
Yes, of course. And that's why the discussion is not to have it forbidden that you do Photoshop. Yeah, but you have to tell it. You have to tell it in the caption or in the text that it was altered. I
But
mean,
let's go back to when you looked at that picture of Kate and William in the car, and everyone was claiming that it was doctored. What did you look for?
of course, I looked at on the internet. People said, "Oh, it cannot be a real photo because the brick wall in the back of the car looks photoshopped because it's different than the brick wall you see on top of the car." So looking through the windows, you could see obviously a different brick wall than up on the car. And normally you would think that they are kind of similar. But then I found out the location where the photo was taken. And then we have this nice invention of Google Maps Street View. And I could actually see the scenery there. And it was totally easy to see that it was a not very high wall, brick wall, and in the back was a house with the same kind of bricks. But the house wall was, of course, farther away. That explains why there was a difference in the lighting. Yeah, and it was clearly it was explainable that there was a difference. And then you see these facts, but then you're still not convinced as a journalist, yeah, because journalists are hard to convince. But then I checked how would Paparazzo choose where he stands. This place is totally the best place where a paparazzo could stand because Windsor Castle has like many gates, but then they wanted to go to Westminster Abbey, so it's clear where they're heading. They could basically go one way around this way or the other way. But in both cases, they have to be at this one certain intersection to then go to on the M4 to London. And so this made me sure that it was a true paparazzo photo because everything made sense then.
Were you able to find out, or can one find out, who takes the pictures?
Of course, his name is last name Burnett. In all the pictures there was a credit, and it was two photographers, the last names of two photographers. So I think that's my assumption. They probably work as a team, so they choose different places where they stand, and then they give out this with a double credit.
So this is a good example of media literacy applied to this. You looked at the source and then you went ahead and you did some OSINT on your own. You looked at Google Maps and you used some logical deduction skills, and it all kind of said, this is a legitimate picture.
There was another news out with Kate and William now that they went to a farmer's shop in Windsor. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, and I also checked that, and it sounds crazy. No one took photos. Yeah, no Instagram photos, no paparazzi, and it's reported that they went together to their favorite farm shop in Windsor. And then I checked it. This might be their favorite farm shop in Windsor, but it's also owned by his father. It's part of Windsor Castle. Actually, it's outside of the gate, so they had to walk. If they walked like 25 meters to get into the next gate of the farmer shop. So it was basically not a public appearance. Everyone says it's a public appearance, but yeah, of course, they were 25 meters in public and then probably protected behind walls and a gate.
The relationship between the British media and the royal family is something that might be hard to understand outside of the UK. I think there's a real give and take there because the press wants to report things, but at the same time, they know if they upset the royal family in some way, they won't get the information. There doesn't necessarily have to be like an injunction or a super injunction not to show a picture of Kate Middleton after an operation if the family has asked the press to be respectful. But that doesn't mean that other journalists from other countries follow the same rules, does it?
Of course, I'm sort of an outside person for obvious reason. I'm not English or British, but my understanding is, of course, this whole royal family thing is a reality show. On the other hand, they really have a role in England, in Britain. They are very important. And sometimes, I mean, English politics is kind of crazy. You have so many prime ministers in a short amount of time. It's really very complicated. It's not just a private family. And
the media landscape we have with social media and this international overlapping of where people are getting their information from, how would an injunction or a super injunction even work nowadays?
But in this case, there was a photo before the Mother's Day photo. There was a photo out, paparazzi photo of allegedly Kate with her mother in the car picking up the children from school, or that was a speculation. And that photo was not published by any British outlet, not printed, not on the web, only American and German and probably other countries there it was carried. So yes, so it works still, and the British people never saw it unless they went to the New York Post or whatever.
If I think back to the 1990s and Bill Clinton's relationship with Monica Lewinsky and how that was shared in the media. In Germany, certain topics about politicians' private lives are not even discussed. There are certain countries, would you agree with me, that handle certain topics differently?
Yes, of course. And in Germany, the press laws are very strict. We are not allowed to report on many things. And sometimes we get letters before we even publish something, sometimes even before we find out something. A former mayor of Berlin sent out a notice. We are not allowed to report on special things that happened during the past weeks in his private life. And we said, what?
So that really must have been hard for you because, first of all, it was news to you and then you couldn't say anything.
It's crazy, but I'm laughing now at these. Sometimes it really it is a matter that's not only annoying, but we think that the freedom of press is not protected enough in Germany. That's my personal opinion.
What about when you take pictures or when you have a story about someone that is hard to get an interview with?
First, we have to think about, was it really on public grounds? Were there other aspects? For instance, if the celebrity, is it a celebrity? That's the most important thing. Is it a public figure?
Okay, let's talk about that because on
Yeah.
social media, sometimes you see people describe themselves as public figures and they've got, maybe 300 followers.
Well, we actually love this Instagram feature with public figure because then they cannot deny later that they're a public figure. Yeah, it's just a box you check at Instagram, and then when you say, "Oh, I'm a public figure," and then it's cool. Yeah, um, and and then in German law, there's also the thing when they have their children with them. Maybe the children are not even in the picture, but they are in this situation. They are there as parents. Then you're not allowed to publish it. Yeah, and I agree, and I think that's a good rule. Yeah, and some celebrities then take their children only not to be have the photo taken. Yeah, and but there's an easier way to secure that the photographers cannot use the photo is you look down. That's what you see sometimes, because then the photos will not be printed. Sometimes you see like Victoria Beckham or so,
Yeah.
only looking down. Yeah.
Okay.
Looking down is a perfect thing. Yeah. You want to see the eyes in a perfect picture, even in paparazzi. You want to see the eyes, but both eyes, and you want to see the white of both eyes. Only then the picture will be printed, unless, of course.
What else do you look at when you look at a picture? Because if you look at a paparazzi picture and you see someone looking down, then you can probably assume they know the trick and they don't want to be photographed at the time. Are there any other things you look at when you see a paparazzi picture to maybe get a feeling for what was going on in that moment?
Well, it depends on the context. In Kate's Mother's Day picture, I checked, is there a wedding ring? Yeah, and there was not. And that's even more interesting because the photo was doctored, and then they didn't do anything about the wedding ring. So I think the main message of that photo by somehow was that something is in problems with the wedding, with the marriage, uh, because we didn't see a wedding ring. You have to always take the whole context there. I mean that.
What advice would you give to people looking at pictures that are from official pictures from Buckingham or Kensington Palace or paparazzi pictures?
Well, use common sense and be skeptical also, but check the source, either the photographer's name. Yeah, you can always start researching with that. And if there's no credit for the photographer, then you should be very skeptical about the picture. But of course, sometimes the paparazzis don't want to be named. We sometimes get paparazzi pictures and it says no credit, no credit, no credit. Yeah, because they don't want, they still want the money, but they do not want the publicity. But then you have to the person who publishes it in the newspaper or the website or in television, they have to know who the photographer is, and that's the code of conduct, and you have to think about, is the web page or the newspaper, is it trustworthy? Pretty much every magazine cover there's some Photoshop, and we take this for granted. I mean, if we see a Playboy cover photo, no one would think, oh yeah, is there something being done? Of course there was. Yeah, it's about the truth, and in the journalistic sphere, you are only allowed to do basic correction in a photo, and it goes back to the way when photos had to be developed in a dark chamber, and you're basically only allowed to do these things now with a computer that you were formerly able to do.
Contrast and things like that.
Yeah, of course you're allowed to crop, but only if you do not change the meaning of the photo. That's also important. And you're allowed to do the brightness, of course, and it's some techniques where you only change the brightness of some parts of the photos. That's also okay. This is still the official rules that you're allowed to do these things that the photographers were able to do like 30, 40 years ago.
You mentioned Kim Kardashian. This is someone that it's no secret that sometimes her pictures are filtered. Is it a motivation then for paparazzi to get her in her natural state?
Of course, and I call that's a positive thing of the paparazzi sphere. I call them our police, because these celebrities, they make a lot of money by creating a certain image, and then of course we are allowed to check that image. Is it really reality? And that's what the paparazzis do.
Jens Prewo, you're a journalist and a producer. You've worked a lot in Germany and globally. You've covered celebrities, and global affairs. And you were the perfect person to talk to us about the royal family because that covers both of these aspects. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.